Okay, welcome to the Edlow podcast. Subscribe if you haven't already. I would say this every time. This is another exciting one for me. I have one of my absolute favorite professional wrestlers on. I am here with none other than Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake, how you doing?
I'm doing great today.
Awesome, awesome. It's great to hear that. Tell me, how are you feeling in general?
Beat up.
Yeah.
Yeah, beat up, worn out, thrown out to dry.
Well,
I've got some problems, I've got emphysema,
mm,
and
mm,
that gives me issues from time to time. But,
mm,
my bones ache.
mm,
Certain kind of weather comes through, and damp, cold weather just kills me. Makes my
mhm.
bones ache like a toothache.
Yeah, and this
You
is
know,
probably the worst time for that, kind of
yeah,
fall
it
winter.
is. It
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, yesterday was brutal.
Mm, man. Well, let me ask you, that's interesting because you're still rocking and rolling though. I mean, you signed with AEW now. You're there with the Righteous, which I think is a
Mhm.
great pair up. I love those
Yeah,
guys.
I do too.
Yeah. Tell me, how did that come about?
Uh, Jake, go to the ring. Okay.
Yeah. How do you
Pretty
like
much it.
working how do you like working for AEW?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the
What
best.
what has been your I mean, you've worked everywhere, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you've worked for all the major promotions for the last 30, 40 years, right?
right.
What do you think is unique about AEW versus some of the other places that you've worked?
They treat you like you're a human being.
Mm, mm,
You know, they really
mhm,
do. They cater to you. They make sure everything is there that's supposed to be there. Um, you're given comfort. Uh, the hotels they put us in are A1 hotels, and they pay
mm,
for it, unlike Vince.
mm,
You know,
uh-huh,
but
uh-huh, yeah,
it's it's the dash of hope that the wrestlers are being treated this good.
yeah,
And they treat you good.
yeah. I find this really interesting as someone who's a big wrestling fan and has been involved in the indie scene a little bit. One of the things that I think is really interesting is when you have a shift like this with AEW, it's kind of like a situation where when they're offering stuff like that, it kind of affects everybody, right? I mean, it makes
Oh,
WWE
sure,
change.
sure
Yeah.
it does. The best thing that could happen to WWE was for them to have competition,
Hmm. Hmm.
because competition is a good thing.
Hmm.
It makes them work harder on their product. It makes them toe the line on how they treat people, because if you treat people bad, they're going to leave.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Vince has found out that he treats people bad because there's been a lot of people leave.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it also seems to me like the guys who go to AEW, they seem to, for the most part, not everybody, but they seem to have a lot of fun
They
over
do.
there.
Yeah,
And they get,
we do have fun.
yeah. And they get to wrestle the way they want to wrestle,
Yeah,
you know?
and they get to do their own interviews
Yeah.
without having them sculpted.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me now, you've been in wrestling for so long. You've seen kind of the evolution. I mean, you were going 300 days a year, independent
Hmm.
contractor. If you don't work, you don't get paid.
Right.
I mean, I think, would you agree that the conditions now are 100 times better than they were when you
Oh,
came up?
a million times better, man. Are you
Yeah.
kidding? I remember working for $15 a night, man.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, the indie scene, at least the lower levels, that's about what you're doing.
Yeah, well,
you know?
maybe, but
Yeah.
not where it counts, man. It's
Yeah.
it takes a while to get there, but it's well worth the journey.
Yeah. Being somebody who's been in the business and really, I mean, the thing that I thought was so fascinating about you is your ring psychology from promo to the match was
Hmm.
just, I mean, second to none. I mean,
Right?
um, what would you say to like a younger indie guy who wants to come up? I mean, they can't come up the same way you did. It's just not the
No,
same. What would you say they really should be working on to try to get to that next level?
all of it.
Yeah, right.
all of it. You got to work on everything, man.
Uh-huh.
Your interviews, you can practice those anytime you want, man. All you need to do is open your mouth and let it go,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
get to where you're comfortable. The
Mhm.
thing about doing an interview is you gotta believe it.
Mhm.
If you believe it, the chances are maybe somebody else will. But if you
Mhm.
go out there and do an interview where you're lackadaisical and just blurting out words, people aren't going to buy into that.
Yeah.
Makes no sense at all. Why would they?
Mhm.
Guy's talking shit and doesn't even know what he's talking about. So
Right.
let
Uh-huh.
it go. As far as wrestling, don't ever do anything out there that you can't do absolutely perfect.
Mm. Mhm.
Because if you do, people will see through it.
Mm.
If you miss a guy by this much, you might as well miss him by this much.
Right.
Because the people, they look for that.
Mhm.
The fan looks for screw ups. They look for missed punches, missed kicks. That way they can discredit you. Once
Mhm.
you've lost your, golly,
Your
brain fart.
credibility. Your
Once you've
credibility.
lost your credibility, you've lost
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah.
Because credibility you don't get back.
Mm.
Once you lose it one time, that's it.
Mhm.
Those fans will never buy into your shtick again.
Mm.
I tell guys that all the time and they just don't believe it. But
Mm.
it's like, well, it'd be like, say I came to town to you and took you out and got you effed up and everything, and you wound up screwing a midget. Well, you went home and you woke up and you realized what you'd done, and you look at that woman that's laying next to you thinking, oh my God, how did I do this to her? Oh
Mm.
my God, I can't believe I did this. Oh my God, I feel so bad. I got to do something. Gosh dang, I got to tell her. I got to tell her. I got to be honest. This is one time honesty is not the best policy because you'll sit there and you'll tell her, honey, we've been married for 20 years and I've never ever screwed around on you until last night.
Mm.
Does she believe you?
No.
No.
Mhm.
You might as well have screwed 5,000 women
Mhm.
because you're going to pay the price.
Mhm.
And
Right.
you lost your credibility.
Mm.
Once you destroy your own credibility, it'd be different if somebody else called you a phony. But when you sit there and call yourself a phony, then and you demonstrate that, then you're lost to the cause.
Mm. Mhm. Do
Same way
the
with marriage and the business.
Yeah. Did you now that's another thing actually you talked about the fans discrediting you. The fans are so different now than they were probably when you were
Oh
coming up.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I
They
mean they
dissect you today.
yeah. Uh-huh.
They truly do.
Yeah. It
They're
was
more
interesting.
satisfied. They're more satisfied if they catch a screw up than they are a good match.
Yeah. Well, that's what's so funny is that I've noticed so around here on the indie scene, you'll have your typical indie shows and you'll get the typical indie fans. And then they're like shows at breweries, someone will buy a show and you go and it's casual fans. It's so much better.
Oh
you
yeah,
know when you have people who aren't so into the business and they're just there to have
right,
a good time. they
right.
pop for they pop for everything
Yeah,
you know
absolutely, man. Don't you love that?
yeah, it's great. You go in there and I just did a show at a brewery and we were match one. I was working with this guy a little bit smaller than me, and you can't see on the video but I'm 6'7", 285, right? And so I just looked at him and we were just like, listen, they're gonna pop. He wanted to do all this stuff and I was just like, they're gonna pop for everything, let's just work a body slam,
That's it.
and
That's
and
all
then
you got to do.
and when they hit that slam, it was like Hogan Andre. You know what I mean? They
Yeah,
they went crazy.
they went
So
absolutely nuts.
yeah, and also being 42 years old, the less bumps, the better.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
you got that right.
yeah. So now tell me, coming up, I know your dad was involved in the business.
Yeah.
Did you always want to get involved?
No, I did not. I hated wrestling.
Mm. Why?
I Well, because I felt like wrestling's what took him away from the home.
Mm, mhm, mhm,
But the truth was, he took himself away from the home.
mm, mhm,
He didn't raise me. I was raised by my stepfather or my grandparents. I'd see him once a year. So that was my out. That was my justification of why my dad wasn't there. Because I wasn't going to say it's because of him, because he's my dad.
Right.
And no, I didn't. I hated wrestling and never wanted to be a part of it. But I graduated from high school. Once again, Dad didn't show up, but I wanted to go see him after I got out of high school and let him know that I graduated, because I was the first one in my family to ever graduate high school. So it was a big deal, and I graduated with honors. I was going to go to college and become an architect. That was my dream. And I went down to see him. I told him I graduated from high school as well. That's good. That's good.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
And I told him I was going to go to college. He's like, well, I hope you don't want anything from me. Like, why would I want anything from you? You've given me nothing so far.
Yeah.
What's my expectations, Dad?
Right.
And really the only reason I was there is I wanted him to say, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And what I've accomplished. And he just couldn't spit it out. Yeah. So a few nights later, I went to a wrestling match where he was performing. And after about 7 or 8 beers, my young mind and ignorance got together and said, if you want your dad to be proud of you, you got to get in the ring and wrestle. So I went up and challenged the guy. And I got stretched. I got stretched this way, that way, and the other. I pissed on myself, passed out. The guy took his time with me too, man. He sat there and waited for me to wake back up and continued what he was doing.
Man.
And after about 10 minutes of it, he let me go because I didn't get away. And I literally crawled to the locker room. Crawled. I was hurt.
Yeah.
And my father was standing there waiting on me. My father was 7 foot and 400 pounds. And he looked down at me and said, I'm ashamed of you. You're gutless and you'll never amount to anything. Wow. That's not the words I wanted, man.
Yeah.
But I remember that night so well. And I remember what I did that night. I went back to the house and I prayed to God. I prayed to the devil. I prayed to whoever would listen to me that I would do anything, whatever it took, by crook, by theft, by whatever reason, whatever needs to be done to become a professional wrestler and be better than my father. Even after I accomplished that, I still didn't get what I wanted to from him. He never came to me and said, I'm proud of you. And, he would tell other people he was proud of me, that he was blown away by what I've done. But he wouldn't tell me. Now, I don't get what's wrong with that or what's wrong with him, but it was wrong.
Do you know?
It caused me a lot of problems.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. Do you know much about his background, his parents?
Yeah.
Yeah. You think that informed the reason why he was the way he was?
Sure, I believe that. I'll give him that out. Yeah, his dad was an alcoholic, a hopeless alcoholic. He would wake up drinking and go to sleep drinking. Yeah. Or pass out. He didn't go to sleep. He passed out.
Yeah. So, it's interesting you bring this up because, I shared with you off air, my dad is a 25-year, he's 25 years sober. He was an addict. And all throughout my high school, he was, in and out, just kind of had some, he would do well for a while, relapse kind of situation. And then when he finally went to rehab, we lost everything. And he went to rehab and he got clean. And I held a lot of resentment for him for a lot of years. And he had it rough. He didn't have anybody who was a good, he didn't have anybody who was a good role model for him. He met his dad 3 times in his life,
Wow.
Probably some, And so now that I'm a father, I'm 42 years old. I got 4 kids myself, you know, and I see the pressure that he's under, that he
Yeah,
was under, because I'm at the age that he was around the age when he went to rehab. And it really informs him like, wow, if you didn't have somebody to be, I mean, he didn't have anybody to be like to be a good example or a bad example. He just didn't have any example at all.
right.
It kind of informs me. And I know that now you're a little bit older and have some years behind you, some experience.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to fathers out there? What would you recommend for somebody?
Just give the kids your time.
Mm,
That's really what they want. They want your attention. They want your time. Tell them you're
mm,
proud of them. Get excited for them.
mhm.
Hell, enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, I miss so much being on the road.
Mhm,
I missed all the ball games, baseball, football, missed it all,
mhm. Do
and
you,
I
do,
regret that.
yeah. I had an interesting interview with Tito Santana.
Yeah,
Um, and I asked him, I said, you know, now you got some years, you did everything in the business you could. Uh, and I go, do you regret it? And he said, oh, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have done it that way. I would have gone and started a business or done something.
yeah.
Do you ever think to yourself, I wish I wouldn't have been a wrestler? Or do you say, hey, you know
No,
what? Okay. Yeah.
no. I the passion that you get out of wrestling, there's no comparison.
Mhm.
You know, to to go city to city and perform in front of thousands of people, or perform in front of 200,
Mhm.
gives you such a rush.
Mhm.
And it's the people that you meet. That's what I wished I would have done. I wished I would have written down names and gotten phone numbers
Mhm.
to all the connections that I made over the years,
Right.
because that book would be worth some money.
Right.
I mean, good God, I met everybody from Donald Trump down, man.
Yeah.
Hung
Yeah.
out with them.
Right. It's interesting too, going back of all those times, what do you think was your favorite, your favorite guy to work with, favorite angle?
Oh man, favorite guy to work with? There's too many.
Mm,
There's
mhm.
just too many. Favorite angle? Probably the blind thing I did
Yeah.
with Martel.
Yeah. That really stuck out.
Yeah, I had a lot to do with that angle. I was the idiot that come up with the contacts and put that shit in my eyes. Then would walk over everything.
Yeah. There were a couple of times, was that WrestleMania 7 or 8?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
7.
so I remember, 'cause there's a couple things that stick out to my mind, in my mind, of your career. That was one of them, because that match was so well. First, I think the angle leading up to the match was really well done. And then the
Mm,
match itself,
it
you
was
really
perfect.
believed you couldn't see
Yeah,
through those
yeah,
clogs. And it worked out so well. It was such a good, as someone who's as someone who's a student of wrestling a little bit, the psychology of that was so good, right?
yeah,
And the other thing that sticks out to me was a promo you did. You had stolen the $1 million belt from Million Dollar Man. This
yeah.
was, I think, WrestleMania 6, I think.
The muck of avarice.
Yeah, yeah. That promo, I remember seeing it when that happened and going, wow, he is going to destroy the Million
Yeah,
Dollar Man. And it stuck out. It's always stuck out to me. Where did you come up with that?
I just do, man. It's probably sitting in a bar drinking a beer, smoking a joint.
It's interesting because your vocabulary, I mean, to have that vocabulary just
Hmm.
there. I mean, were you always a big reader, or where did you get
Yeah,
that
I
stuff?
like to read. I like to listen too. You
Mm.
know, I got a lot of my interviews from music.
Oh, interesting.
Pink Floyd, Rolling Stones,
Mm.
a lot of them.
Mm.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
Just take little snips and put those into your interview, because it's a funny thing. If you say something that people recognize, they recognize it without even knowing it.
Yeah.
It'll click in their mind. I've heard that before. It must be true. You know,
Right.
if you say, I'm the boy at the end of the block your mama always warned you about. Christ, every kid in the world knows that.
Right.
Because mama has warned them about somebody at the end of the block.
Yeah.
You know, and put fear in your heart.
Sure. Man. You know, as you watch and you see the landscape, who do you think it is that is kind of the would you say the Jake Roberts of this generation?
Bray Wyatt was,
Yeah.
you know, and it crushes me when I think about that.
Yeah.
What a talent. What a piece
Yeah.
of talent, man. And gone so young,
Mhm.
you know, just blows me away.
You know what's interesting about that as a fan of wrestling? You know, the time that you came up was such a unique time because all of you guys at one point or another were a main eventer in the territories, and Vince just
Right.
brought you all in.
Right.
But I think that now, you know, wrestling itself is such a draw. Like the WWE name is such a draw. The wrestlers don't have to be as big of a draw as they were back then.
No, they don't.
But the thing is there are a few guys where when their name is on the marquee, you're more incentivized to buy a ticket. And Bray
Yeah.
Wyatt was one of those
Yeah.
guys. I think Roman Reigns, MJF,
Yeah.
those are guys who have it. Who are the guys who you think are going to be the big draws next?
Bro, I have no idea.
Yeah.
You know, there's a few guys in AEW like MJF that have got it together. Yeah, there's several guys that are coming up that way. But I'm not going to single somebody out because that means I'll be leaving somebody out, and I don't want to do that to anybody.
Sure. So now that you're still kind of contributing to the business,
Right?
you're still involved. Are there other things that you like to do now?
Oh yeah.
What are some of your other interests?
Fish.
Yeah.
Love to fish. Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
I love me some fishing, man.
Yeah.
Damn right.
Yeah. How often do you fish?
Probably once every 2 or 3 months.
Really?
I'd like to do more, and I'm going to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what time of year it is. I'm planning a trip in December. I
Yeah.
don't give a fuck how cold it is. Fish don't know it.
Yeah. Where are you planning on going? Anywhere interesting?
Lake Texoma.
Okay. All right.
North of Dallas.
Nice.
Fish for stripers.
Nice.
You ever caught a striper?
No.
Well, they go from about 16 inches long to about 3 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
And man, you hook a good one, and it's a blast.
Mm-hmm.
It will wear your ass out trying to get that thing up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it'll blow you up. Sometimes you got to hand off to somebody because you just can't hold on any longer.
Sure. Do you have some people that are like your fishing buddies?
Oh yeah. I take my boys, and we got several friends that come. We got a buddy out of New Jersey that'll come. We got another buddy out of California that will come. Then a couple of wrestlers like to go.
Nice.
But we just go out there. We'll get 4 to 6 of us. We got a real good guide, and he's full of shit and war stories, and he was in the service, so we all talk the same language, half this, half that, and sit back, and sometimes the boys will light up a cigar and huff and puff on that, and just have a good time.
Yeah.
I'd rather catch fish, but if I don't, I'm not pissed off.
Yeah.
The time sitting on that water, just enjoying the view and nature. It's a hell of a good time, man.
So having that time away from your boys, when you're traveling so much, what does it mean to you that you're able to do that with them now?
Oh, it means the world to me.
Yeah.
It means the world to me. And it does to them too. I've got 8 kids.
Wow.
4 boys, 4 girls. So unfortunately, my relationship with 3 of them's not too good. We're
Mm.
still working on it. Not going to give up, but I got to respect their space, and
Mm-hmm.
in time they'll come around.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope.
Are you so are you it's interesting because relationships are there's like relationships with kids. I mean, my kids are younger and sometimes they can be real hard. They're all so
Oh
different.
my God.
Yeah. But are you currently you're open to reconciliation? They just need some time.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm wide open for reconciliation. I'll do anything for it.
Mhm.
And they know that I'm
Mhm.
willing to sit down with them, or I'm willing to go to counseling. I'm willing to do anything. I'll have a mediator. I don't give a shit.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm not going to lie to them. I'll tell them the damn truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so important. You know what I mean? Is
Truth
being
is,
able,
yeah,
yeah, because it's real hard, especially when you've been hurt by somebody. I mean, I'm sure there's
yeah,
some hurt there from not being there and some of your issues. Being
oh yeah,
open to being willing to hear it. And I know like with my dad, that was one thing was that he was willing to listen when you had some resentment,
yeah,
willing to say he was sorry,
yeah,
give his perspective.
yeah.
It really went a long way. I had a lot of resentment for a lot of time, and it really took a long time for me to get rid of it. But now we're great. I mean, he's a great guy now. You know what I mean? And I have a sister who's 21 years younger than me, and I sometimes get a little annoyed because I'm like, you have a dad that I wish I'd had when I was your age.
Right,
And but at the same time, I'm not because it shaped me as who I was. Who
right.
I
Well,
am.
it made you cognizant of what's out there,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
can happen.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I've been to a few jails and I've been to several rehabs,
Mhm.
and in either place did I meet someone that said, Jake, when I was growing up, my dream was to become a drunk and an alcohol and a junkie.
Hmm.
Nobody dreams of becoming an alcoholic.
Mhm.
Nobody dreams of becoming an addict. It's
Mhm.
something that happens to you through life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it could have stemmed from his parents. It could have stemmed from an ex-girlfriend. It could have stemmed from anything, man.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you get some hurt that's inside of you and it grows. Resentment grows and grows and grows. And it's got to find an outlet somewhere. And the bottom line is we're tired of hurting.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we turn to something that can't help us. I've never seen any drug that makes me a better person than it did before I started it. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
usually I was a fucked up mess for several days.
Mhm. Mhm.
And alcohol's the same way. It doesn't make you a better person.
Yeah. It's interesting. I heard a therapist one time say, really, drugs, drinking, it's really just an unhealthy coping
Yeah,
mechanism.
absolutely.
And if you just fix the underlying issue, then the addiction is easy.
Then you won't have the addiction.
Yeah. And I've
Yeah,
heard you I've heard you in podcasts and interviews before talk about you really started with painkillers after Honky nailed you with that
yeah,
guitar.
yeah.
But the addiction part of it, do you, if you don't
It was
mind
there
asking,
before.
yeah, where do you think that came from? Was that from your dad or something different?
I think it's from genetics.
Okay.
My grandfather growing up as a kid, seeing my grandfather the way he was. I mean, his thing was by the time I got home from school, he'd be passed out.
Mm. Mhm.
I mean, he'd piss on himself. He'd sit there in the piss and everything, and just, I couldn't bring somebody home from school.
Right.
I couldn't let them in my house.
Sure.
I was a bedwetter when I was a kid.
Mhm.
Well, we didn't have a washer and dryer, so grandma, she had to wash those things out by hand and then hang them on the line outside.
Mhm.
And they'd be out there with a great big yellow circle in the middle of it. Hell, anybody that drove by knew somebody was a bedwetter in that house,
Right. Right.
and that caused a lot of shame and a lot of embarrassment.
Sure.
So I always had an angry edge about me.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons I came up with that snake gimmick, is because with that snake in the locker room, chances are nobody wants to talk to me. They just want to know about that fucking snake,
Right.
you know. And they're keeping their eyes on the snake. They're not keeping their eyes on me. They're not asking me damn questions and shit.
Mhm. Mhm.
They're just wanting to know if it's safe to go around that son of a bitch.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because you in the last, I'd say in the last, at least the last 10 years, 15 years, you've been so open. You seem very open to talk about anything.
Yeah,
But it sounds like back then you really weren't. Were you
I
just
wasn't. I was
just not
hiding.
really, yeah, just not really ready to talk about that
I
stuff?
was hiding because I still had so much shame.
Mm, mhm.
There's nothing glory. There's no glory in being an addict or a drunk.
Sure.
you
Right.
know, you might be Mr. Big Shot when you're drunk,
Mhm,
but nobody remembers that shit. you know,
mhm,
nobody thinks of a drug addict as somebody that's successful.
mhm,
So it just
mhm.
brings more shame. And
Yeah.
no, I was hiding, man. I hid everything. I
Mm,
didn't want people to know that my father was a pedophile,
mm.
but it's something that I grew up around.
Yeah.
Him getting young girls and God knows what all he did to them.
Yeah.
But it didn't bother him to have them around me.
Yeah.
We go to a hotel and he'd put me on one side of the hotel and him on the other side of the hotel in a room that had connecting doors
Mm,
for him and his little girls.
man.
And that was hard to live with.
Yeah, I gotta imagine.
Getting back in the car the next day, driving some more, knowing what had happened last night,
Mm,
and just having to look at that man thinking to myself, what a fucking piece of shit.
yeah.
These
And that
girls
and
are
that's and that's your
13,
dad.
14 years old.
And that's your dad.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Did that ever make you feel like, man, like that's my genetics? Was that
Yeah,
like
it
that's
did. It did. It
yeah,
scared me to death.
yeah.
In fact, my fifth child,
Mm,
girl, was 18 years old
mm,
before I finally let her sit down in my lap.
mm,
I wouldn't even hold him as a youngster
mm,
because I was afraid something would come over me
mm,
and I would turn that way.
mm.
Scared to death of it,
Yeah.
but it's no longer there. Sobriety helps.
Yeah.
Talking about it helps.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What was the switch that flipped that helped that turned you from being just angry, building it up inside, to letting it out and talking about
Well, they say you got to get to the bottom of the barrel.
it? Mhm,
Well, I went beneath the barrel. I went under the barrel and had lost everything and was on my last legs.
mhm,
I was praying to die.
mhm,
I really was.
mhm,
And being broke, destitute, just a complete fucking mess. It went to 310 pounds when I wrestled at 240.
mhm, mhm.
And a buddy of mine, Diamond Dallas Page,
Yeah.
came to the rescue.
Mhm,
And he brought me to Atlanta from Texas, paid to have me moved, uh, paid all my bills. I moved in with him. He continued to pay all my bills, all my obligations. He paid for 3 years. 3 years. I paid him back,
Sure.
but he paid everything for 3 years. So I didn't have any outside issues, any outside pressure coming.
Mhm,
He made me clean up my driver's license. And after I cleaned it up, I cut it up.
mhm.
Because the last thing an addict needs or a drunk needs is a car.
Yeah.
That's the recipe for disaster right there.
Mhm,
Because if I had a car, I'd go someplace to get me some shit
mhm, mhm.
and not even know that I was doing it. It would just happen.
Yeah.
you know. So moving in with him, knowing that I'll never make it, There's no way in hell I can go from doing an 8-ball a day
Mhm.
every day and drinking at least a 12 pack or maybe a bottle of vodka with it,
Mhm.
cold turkey, and not just fuck off.
Mhm.
Well, guess what? I did. I went cold turkey, and by the grace of God, because God's the only one that can cure you like that, I didn't go through the DTs or any of that shit. I didn't I didn't Jones so bad that I had to have it. In fact, I didn't have any need for drugs at all. Not once did it come to my mind, you need to go get high.
Hmm.
And that's just the good Lord above. Now, I'm sure that prayer had helped,
Yeah.
but my prayers were answered for sure. But it wasn't a smooth road. I mean, there were hiccups. I think in 3 years, I screwed up 5 or 6 times,
Mhm.
but it'd be the first time was like in 3 months.
Mhm.
Then the next time was in 5 months.
Mhm.
And the next time was 7 months. So I was getting more time in before I'd screw up.
Mhm.
And finally, at the last, I'd been clean for over a year whenever I moved out.
Yeah.
And
Man.
I still hadn't got a driver's license at that point. Uh, but when I moved out, there was a necessity there, a need. So I went and bought a car, and that was something that I hadn't done in years. Buy something really decent.
Yeah.
You know, I'd spend $1,000 on cocaine anytime,
Right.
but I wouldn't buy a new TV.
Right.
I'd rattle that old one till it fell off the wall.
Hmm.
I wouldn't treat myself good. I'd just spend it on drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
A good
You know,
time to me was going out to the liquor store and spending $500.
what is it, I gotta think during the time that you're, an addict, that in your mind that it's bad. You shouldn't be doing it.
Oh, sure, you know it.
So what is it about being an addict that propels you to keep doing it?
You want to escape the pain.
Mm.
You want to escape the shame.
Mhm.
You're tired of looking around the room and seeing nothing but garbage, nothing but broke down shit. You're tired of looking in the mirror because you're seeing broke down shit there too. You're tired of looking at yourself. I wouldn't go shopping unless it was midnight or later
Mm.
because I didn't want anybody to see me, how
Mm.
bad I looked. I didn't shave. I didn't do shit for my body. I wasn't clean. I just let myself go because I didn't give a fuck. Because as soon as I woke up, I'm going to find a way to get high today. Some way. I'll sell something. I'll do something. I'll borrow from somebody.
Mm. Man. Now, so now you've been sober. How long have you been sober now?
Well, 11 years.
11 years. Wow.
Yeah.
So, going from a place where you were praying to die to
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
being sober 11 years, signed with AEW,
Yeah.
working with the righteous, doing these things, your mindset now, you got to be thinking this is just a second chance at life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I
Yeah.
thought that once I got sober, and
Mhm.
I had a awakening of sorts. I'd been at the house for about 10 months. And man, I was working out every day, but my shoulder was just killing me.
Mhm.
Well, last thing a drunk or junkie's going to have is insurance.
Right.
you
Right.
know, screw that. Let me have that money back.
Right.
Well, I needed surgery.
Mhm.
Well, Dallas, he says, we're going to try something. I'm like, what? It's called a GoFundMe. What the hell is that? So he explains it to me, and I'm like, Dallas, there ain't nobody going to give you money to have me have surgery. He said, you'd be surprised what people that love you will do for you. I'm like, man, there ain't nobody out there going to give shit. And they put that thing up, and in less than 24 hours, we had $20,000
Wow.
in less than 24 hours.
So did you have to do an arthroscopic, or was it a total shoulder?
Arthroscopic.
Okay. Yeah. I'm an attorney. I work in personal injury and wrongful death, so I know a little bit about that stuff.
Yeah.
So how was the recovery?
Oh, it hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt. Especially while you're out, they tell you we're sending a machine over to your house and we'll show you how to use it. So they send it over to the house. They show me how to use it. Then they tell me, whatever you do, do not push that button right there. I'm on painkillers.
Sure.
So what did I do?
Hit the button.
You damn right I did. And man, that thing shot my arm straight up above me, man. I almost shit myself. My God, I screamed, tried to get out of the chair, but I'm strapped into the damn thing. Yeah. Oh my God, it just kept going up and down, up and down, up and down. Yeah, I had 2 bone spurs. One of them was over 2 inches long.
Oof. Yeah.
And every time I moved my shoulder, it was just bringing the muscles over that thing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Now, when you were at Dallas's house, I know at some point you brought Scott Hall in. Was he in there the same time you were?
Yeah.
Okay. Talk to me about that. I mean, you probably knew him. Were you guys friends before that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were.
So seeing that was probably pretty good for you too, seeing him recover.
Bringing Scotty in and him jumping in and really working at it. You know, he had to have a GoFundMe for his hips.
Yeah.
And they raised over $100,000.
Yeah.
To have his hips done.
Man.
But you know, it showed me that I didn't know shit about people. It also showed me there were a lot of people out there that loved me.
And what did that mean to you? I mean, you're sitting there.
It meant the world to me, man. I thought I was dead and forgotten. I thought everything I'd done had just been forgotten. Nobody wants Jake around.
Right.
Hell no, they don't want a drunk and a junkie around, but they like to have Jake back.
Yeah. Right.
And that's what it showed me.
Yeah. You know, I just something popped into my head. I got to share this story with you. So this is probably 1999, 2000 is when it's probably 98 actually, because I just started training wrestling. There was a show here in Sacramento at the Memorial Auditorium for the National Wrestling Council. And it was this guy named TC Martin. He ran the show and he booked the main event was going to be you and Coco Beware versus Honky Tonk Man and Greg Valentine. You guys were the main. They had Sabu there too. First time I saw Sabu live ever. I didn't even know what ECW was at the time. And so anyway, but this is what so this was at a time, I believe. So we show up and we go and they had everybody signing autographs. You weren't signing autographs. And we could hear some of the wrestlers talking. And you were in one of your addictive times. And I got to be honest, when you got out there, it's pretty clear. Okay.
Yeah.
But there was something that I thought that was really interesting about that really that shows me your character. I don't know if you remember this. So at intermission, you came out to take pictures with people. And there was a mentally handicapped kid in the front row. And you walked over to him and you said, I like your shirt. Trade me shirts. And that kid was like, that kid's dad could not have, he almost jumped through the roof because the kid said, my shirt won't fit you. And you said, I bet you traded the shirt and that shirt did not fit you, but you put it on anyway. And then you left, and then you came out in the main event still wearing the shirt. And that was, I was watching you guys, but I watched the kid, and that kid was beaming when you came out
Yeah.
wearing his shirt. And it just goes to show me that even in your addicted modes, you still had a really good heart and really cared. You know, and
I do care, man.
And that is you know, that's a thing that I've also learned. You know, I was lucky. I have a brother who's different than me. You know, we both grew up with our father. I was like, I'm never touching a drug my entire life. You know, he went complete opposite, you know. And but one thing I did learn through that and other things was that nobody is all one thing.
No.
You know, just because you're an addict doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you're an addict.
That's it.
Yeah. And that's something you struggle with. And
Yeah.
so now, I mean, how old are you now?
68.
68 years old. And I gotta ask you, you know, wrestlers' timelines are a little bit lower. Are you surprised to be 68 and still going?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I thought I'd been dead 15 years ago.
Right. Yeah. So now you go to conventions, you do these things. Who are your favorite guys to like run into?
Steamboat,
Yeah.
Greg Valentine, Bob Orton.
Yeah.
Hell, there's a long list of them, man.
Yeah. You know, okay, I want to talk to you for the few minutes we have left. There's a few things I want to talk about that just as a fan. So your run with Honky Tonk Man
Yeah.
felt like it went on forever. And but you guys like always had a little bit of magic in the ring.
Yeah.
I think Jimmy Hart had a lot to do with that. But yeah, but what was it about working with Honky that you guys worked so well together?
Well, I think I could work with a broomstick.
Yeah.
You know, and have a pretty good match.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I've actually done it a couple of times, but I got beat both times, so I wasn't going to bring it up. But it's just so easy. Number one, because what he did was a shoot. He really fucking killed me.
Yeah.
So it's easy to show a little animosity or even hate. You know, I hate to say hate because that's such a powerful word. But him and I still have problems. And you put both of us in the ring right now, you can still see it. You know, and that is just what it is.
Yeah. Well, now that's the other one I wanted to talk about was the run with Steamboat, because I remember watching Saturday Night's Main Event when you planted him on the concrete, and I remember my dad going like, "Oh, he's legitimately out."
Yeah.
In that moment, what did you think?
I thought he was dead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I told him I couldn't do it. I told Vince McMahon. I told the other guy, the guy that Steamboat wanted me to do it for. What was his damn name? I can't remember it now, but it doesn't matter. Steamboat, this guy had given Steamboat his big break in Mid-Atlantic. So Steamboat wanted to repay him for that favor. And this guy went to Steamboat and said, "I really need you to do this for me, Ricky." You know, and Ricky said, "Okay, I'll do it." And I said, "Steamboat, you can't. It'll kill you. It just can't be done." And he swore up and down. He said, "I'll get my hands down. Don't worry about it. I'll block it. I'll block it. I'll block it." I said, "No, you won't. You won't be able to." I was right.
Yeah.
His head swelled out 4 inches.
Yeah.
4 inches. Took 2 weeks for his eyes to turn black.
Wow.
That's how much swelling was up there.
Man.
But he's lucky it didn't kill him.
Yeah. Man. And so, but I remember you picked him up and put him in the ring.
Man.
Yeah.
Picking him up is like picking up a truck full of shit. Man, somebody that's out, they're just there's no help there, man.
Yeah. That's another, I remember another one. I think it was WrestleMania 1. The guy you were wrestling, I can't remember his name, African American gentleman.
Oh yeah.
I've never seen him before.
George Wells.
George Wells, yeah.
Yeah, with the Alka-Seltzer.
Yeah, was that what that was?
Yeah.
With the Alka-Seltzer? I was like, what is that he's spitting out? That was crazy.
Yeah, he put an Alka-Seltzer in his mouth.
Man. And so was there anyone else that you really, I mean, I remember you had that run with Randy Savage too, with the
Yeah,
Cobra.
yeah.
And, how did that, I mean, did you enjoy working with Randy?
Oh yeah, we had a blast.
Mhm, mhm.
You know.
Was there anyone that you wish you could have worked with that you didn't?
Well, let me think there. Well, I wish I could have worked with Bray Wyatt.
Mm, mhm.
I challenged him on the internet to a stripper's pole match. But he never got back to me, man. Yeah, there's a few guys I would have liked to work with. I can't really come with a name right now.
Mhm.
Kind of
Do you wish you would have ever had that run on top with Hogan?
sure. I had 2 matches with him, but that's it.
Yeah. And I've heard in the past you talk about this, about how they kind of split the crowd because you were kind of a fan favorite at that point. People were cheering you,
I was
and they didn't
supposed to
want to.
be a heel,
Right. Yeah. And
but
so,
it was over 50% cheering
yeah.
me.
Mm,
And that's the last thing Vince McMahon wanted was a crowd split.
right. Right.
And
Well, that's interesting though, because they did that with Hogan Warrior, but I guess Warrior was supposed to be the guy to take over for Hogan.
yeah, that was the one time everybody knew it was the handing of the torch.
Yeah. Right. You were one of the few guys, I think, that you and kind of like Roddy Piper were the type of guys who you
Yeah,
never really needed a belt. You guys were just over no
no,
matter where you were.
that's
You
it.
know. Did you ever have an opportunity to work with Ric Flair?
Yeah, yeah, I worked with Ware a few times.
And how did that go?
Good matches.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good matches.
Do you have any idea why you never really had like an extended run with him?
Same reason.
Mm,
Crowd was split.
mm, mm. Yeah, but nobody wanted to give you the torch to be the top guy, huh?
Nope.
Do you know why that is?
Well, it's probably because of my damned addictions.
Yeah. Mhm.
You know, what's the last thing they're going to do? Say we can give it to this guy, or we can give it to this guy over here that's got a cocaine addiction and is drunk a lot.
Yeah.
Let me think about that.
Mhm. Right. Another thing I noticed about you is I remember watching your documentary,
Hmm.
and there looked to be, I think at one point, a poem you had written. I
Yeah,
don't remember specifically what it was, but I remember reading it going, that was pretty good.
yeah,
Do you still write?
yeah, yeah. I've got a book that's about to come out.
Do you?
Yeah,
Interesting. Is it a book of poetry or is it a book just about your
no,
life?
about my life.
Oh, interesting. When is that coming out?
The next 6 months.
Oh, right
I'm
on.
doing it. The reason it's taking so long is I'm doing it all myself.
Oh, okay. So self-publishing.
Yeah, word for word. That's all me.
Man. Well, that's going to be awesome considering, I mean, I'm assuming you do a lot of wrestling conventions and things
Yeah,
like that. You'll be
yeah,
able to take that book out.
yeah.
And so I'm sure that'll be a big top seller.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. It better be.
Yeah, I hope so. Right. Now tell
Okay.
me, how long do you think you got with AEW? I mean, you have a contract with them, but how long do you
I
anticipate?
don't know. I don't know. I guess when they get tired of me, they'll send me home.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Do you ever foresee yourself kind of just saying, okay, I'm done with wrestling, period, or are you just going to keep going?
you got to do something. You know,
Mhm.
I've seen too many people that retire and do nothing, and they don't live very long.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, I feel like you got to have purpose. You got to have some type of substance in your life that makes you hungry.
Yeah.
And I'll probably keep signing as long as I'm able to sign my damn name.
Yeah.
And reason being, it's not for the money; it's for the meeting the fans and talking to the fans and visiting with them and hearing their stories and talking about my match with so and so, or sometimes they talk about matches I don't even remember.
Yeah.
You know, and hell, I argued with the guy the other day about I never wrestled that son of a bitch. About 2 hours later, he came back with his phone, and there I was wrestling that son of a bitch. I'm like, God damn.
Man. That's awesome. We got a few more minutes. I want to just ask you a couple of questions I ask everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
What in your mind is your biggest success in life?
Reconciling with my wife.
Oh,
Uh, After all we went through, because she seen me at my worst. And, she had me thrown in jail a few times.
mm,
I deserved it.
mm,
But after 24 years being divorced, we're now back together.
wow.
That's that and sobriety.
Yeah.
I wish to hell I'd known years ago how much fun being sober is,
Yeah.
but I didn't think it was.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
simply because I had too many demons that needed to be exercised,
Yeah. Do you think you've exercised them officially?
Yes. I'm
That's
not
awesome.
scared. I'm not scared of them anymore.
That's awesome.
You
That's
know,
really awesome.
nothing comes to the table now that makes me want to run.
Man. What would you say is I mean, we've talked a lot about, I would imagine I know, but what would you say is your biggest failure in life and what did you learn from it?
Oh man, my biggest failure in life was not being there for my kids
Yeah.
or my wife.
Mhm.
I was a lousy father, man.
Mhm.
But I'm getting a second chance with my grandkids, and they light me up. They make
Yeah,
me happy.
I bet. Do you like to did you ever turn on like the WWE network or something and be like, look at this is granddad back in his day?
No, I
Great.
let them find that stuff out on their own.
Yeah. Nice. Well, let me ask you the last question I have for everybody is one day, we hope it's way down the road, you're going to pass away.
Yeah.
And when you do, someone's going to give you a eulogy at your funeral. What is the one thing you hope somebody says about you in your eulogy?
That I had a good heart.
Yeah. Well,
And yeah, good heart.
well, like I said, I mean, I shared that story with you.
Yeah.
You do have a good heart, you know?
Yeah. I treat special kids special ways.
Yeah.
And they're God's children as far as I'm concerned. I had a stepbrother that was
Mm,
mentally challenged, and to the point that he couldn't even live with us. He had to live in a home,
mm,
and he would come and stay with us from time to time. And because of his problems, he would drool a lot, and snot would run out of his nose all the time, and it looked pretty nasty.
mhm.
And people making fun of him and pointing a finger at him and saying mean things to him really tore at me
Yeah.
because they didn't know how good he was.
Mhm.
I mean, if he thought he hurt your feelings by saying something, he would cry to the point that we'd have to take him to the hospital and get a shot
Wow.
because he would cry himself for days. His eyes would
Mhm.
swell shut
Mm, mm.
just because he thought he hurt you. And you
Yeah.
could tell him, I'm not hurt. It didn't matter. It was in his head that he had hurt you.
Mm.
And he didn't want to hurt nobody because he didn't like being hurt.
Yeah. But what's interesting about that is, being in the indie scene and at times booking names and being around some of these guys. Sometimes they come in, they just do their job, they go home. They
Yeah.
don't spend a lot of time. But seeing something like that from somebody who's been at the absolute mountaintop, I mean,
Yeah.
you've been
I
and
always do
being
take care of the kids, man.
yeah,
And
well,
grown-ups that have the issues too.
yeah,
If somebody comes up there in a wheelchair, brother, whatever I have on my table is theirs.
yeah,
And it's the same thing with the special kids. Whatever they want on the table is theirs for no charge.
Yeah.
And I have fun with them.
Yeah.
I pick at them and aggravate them and get them to laughing. I got one kid that follows me around. If I'm within 200 miles of this town up in Pennsylvania, he'll be there. And his dad says the moment he comes inside the building, he starts beaming.
Yeah.
Because he knows that I'm going to fuck with him.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I'll take him with his wheelchair and go over and hide it in the corner. We'll leave him there and he'll laugh his ass off.
That's awesome. Well, man, I got to tell you, this is a bucket list moment for me.
Cool.
So I appreciate you coming on. For
Thank
those
you.
who've listened, if you're not a wrestling fan and you hear that Jake the Snake Roberts is going to be at a show, you absolutely got to see him. You're one of a kind, and you were so memorable. In a sea of wrestlers in the 80s and 90s that could be memorable, you stood out. You were uncommon amongst the uncommon, and that's really amazing. And so anyway, if you have listened, subscribe, and we got a lot more fun episodes coming up. So keep listening. Thanks for listening. We'll see you later, Jake.
All right, bro. Take care.